mission I want to show you is for Gunnebo Slot in Sweden near Gothenburg. I used a satellite view with the names of the places so I have an idea where I am. After I've done that, the second step is to check the general settings. Do I work in metric? Do I have a cruising speed, point of return when the action is finished? Do I have curves? Do I focus on the point of interest? And so on. The next step is to set points of interest on the map. Where do I want the camera to focus on? What do I want the drone to look at? I generally use an altitude of 2 meters, not above ground, because I'm not quite sure how it works out when I do that. Maybe something to try next year. For this mission I used 2 points of interest, both at 2 meters altitude. Then you set the start point of your mission, which is not necessarily identical with the takeoff point. You see 30 meters altitude and it's focusing on the point of interest with an angle of 28 degrees downwards. The second waypoint I fly to is with a higher altitude because I wanted to avoid getting into trees flying around. You see the angle of the drone changed and you see the focus point of the gimbal has changed to 45 degrees. Next step is to set around the waypoints. What you see is that there always is a line back to point 1, which is the return path. That is good to watch because if there's an obstacle between the waypoint where you end and the point 1, you can avoid that. So set all the points, check the mission. You can see the altitudes in the black squares. Everywhere you see that's all fine. So now it's time to save the mission. I called it Gunnebo Demo. And then I export the path as a KML 3D so I can check it in Google Earth. After I've done that, I close Litchi. And open the KRM path. Using Google Earth here makes it a little bit easier because you can see if you're in your altitude high enough for the area where you're flying. This is not a guarantee that you're high enough, but it gives you an indication. Be aware that this mostly is older footage they use for Google Earth. So if there's a new building or anything, check before you fly in the area where you want to fly. Then I go to the site of the Lantmäteriet, which is the authority where you can get maps of all Sweden for hiking, but I use them for flying. Zoom in on the area I want to go to and check if there's any nature reservoir or anything that is causing flight restrictions there. As you can see, the house is outside the nature reservoir. There are no other restrictions noticeable, so that's fine here. I printed as a A3 map using the road names and the property lines to check that I'm certainly on public land and not on a private area. I saved them as a PDF so I can pull them on my phone or on my tablet and use them to check if everything's okay, or if anyone complains, you can use it then. The next step is to go to the transport authorities. The transport authorities offer a map with general flight restrictions. You can see the airports and so on. First I thought, oh, I'm in the area of an airport, but when you zoom in, you can see that I'm far enough away from all the airports in the area and restricted parts, so I was fine to fly there. The last thing I check is DGI. DGI is not reliable in 100%. As you can see when the map shows up, there is a difference in what DGI shows as restricted area and the authorities show as a restricted area. I advise you to use the indications by the authorities and not the one from DGI. So time to continue flying. The man I zoomed in here is member of a film crew, and he is coming up to me to tell me that I'm not allowed to fly or record at the spot where I am. To be able to pay attention to what the man was telling me, I paused the mission and listened to what he said and told him that I am within my legal rights, but I decided to return the drone to have time to clarify things with him. back at home, I checked the maps again, checked with the authorities, and found out that I was in my legal rights. So I decided to go back to the place the next morning to continue my flight.